Antarctica is the coldest and one of the most inaccessible places on the planet, a place that for centuries seemed dead and lifeless. But in recent decades, technology has allowed us to look beneath the thick layer of ice that hides this continent. And what scientists saw there literally left them speechless. Under an ice shell several thousand feet thick, radar equipment detected strange shapes. They were too regular, too symmetrical to be a natural phenomenon. Enormous lines, right angles, and structures resembling walls and domes located at depths where sunlight hasn't reached for millions of years. Official science is cautious in its conclusions, but behind the scenes at scientific conferences, whispers circulate. Perhaps these are the remnants of an ancient city. But how could a civilization have existed in a place that today seems completely uninhabitable? The answers to this question take us far back in time, to an era where history and myth are so intertwined that it's difficult to tell one from the other. And the deeper we look beneath this ice, the stranger the discoveries become. Images that stunned scientists. A turning point came when orbital satellites and specialized aircraft equipped with geo-radars began mapping Antarctica. The very first images sparked a storm within the scientific community. In some areas, perfectly circular formations hundreds of yards in diameter were visible, along with chains of rectangular structures and even objects resembling roads. Researchers from NASA and the European Space Agency were in no hurry to make sensational statements, but they did acknowledge that there are anomalies, and they require further study. Several frames even leaked online, causing real panic among conspiracy theory enthusiasts. Some claimed this was proof of an ancient metropolis, while others spoke of giant machines frozen beneath the ice. However, the most experienced geologists point out that such perfect shapes are extremely unusual in nature, and if they are of artificial origin, their age could be tens of thousands of years, long before the advent of written human history. But to understand what we are dealing with, scientists turned their attention to even more mysterious objects. Giant anomalies. In the very heart of East Antarctica, radar detected something so enormous that its scale is astonishing. Beneath an ice layer several thousand feet thick, there are structures stretching for many miles. Some of them are shaped like domes several hundred feet high, while others resemble giant towers or pyramids. The strangest thing is that all of them are arranged in a specific order, as if they were built according to a plan. Researchers who have studied the data compare them to ancient megalithic complexes, but here, the scale is dozens of times greater. And this is not an isolated discovery. Similar anomalies have been detected in different parts of the continent. No known natural process is capable of creating such a network of even and complex structures. But if this is the work of intelligence, then who could have built something like this in conditions when the continent was not yet covered in ice? However, there are places that scientists do not talk about openly at all, places where access is strictly limited. The Forbidden Zone of Antarctica. Antarctica is the only continent governed by an international treaty that prohibits any military activity and restricts the extraction of mineral resources. But there are areas where even scientific expeditions are not allowed. In the archives, you can find references to zones with specific coordinates where entry is forbidden, even if you have the necessary permits. The official reasons sound formal: dangerous crevasses, unfavorable weather conditions, and the protection of unique ecosystems. But among researchers, there are rumors that these places contain objects that could change our understanding of the planet's past. Some of these restricted zones coincide with areas where geo-radar anomalies have been detected. And although officials deny any connection, the coincidence seems far too strange. Sometimes, to understand a prohibition, you need to look deep into the past and remember that humanity knew about Antarctica long before its official discovery. Legends of ancient maps. In the 16th century, the Turkish admiral Piri Reis created a world map on which Antarctica was depicted without its ice cover. This is impossible, considering that the continent was officially discovered only in the 19th century. Moreover, the map shows a coastline with details that scientists were only able to confirm using modern technology. Similar maps are also found among other ancient navigators. They suggest that the southern continent was once free of ice and possibly inhabited. But how could sailors of the past have known what the coastline looked like beneath kilometers of ice? Some historians suggest that these are traces of knowledge passed down from a very ancient civilization that existed long before the cultures we know. Others believe this is merely coincidence or the imagination of cartographers. But the more we study old documents, the stronger the sense that Antarctica holds the memory of a time when people lived there. And confirmation of this can be found in the accounts of those who first set foot on this icy continent. Testimonies from the first expeditions. When, at the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century, the first brave souls ventured into the depths of Antarctica, their main goal was to prove that humans could survive in these conditions. But strangely enough, the diaries and reports of the expeditions contain fragments that are rarely quoted in official histories. For example, the British expedition led by Robert Scott described strange stone formations that did not resemble the usual ice ridges. One of the team members wrote that they seemed like the remains of walls, long since destroyed and buried under snow. During Roald Amundsen's Norwegian expedition, stones with unusual carved patterns were found in an area far from the coast. No one was able to explain their origin precisely, and the finds quickly disappeared into private collections. Similar stories can also be found in the records of Soviet expeditions from the mid-20th century. But the further the explorers advanced into the continent, the more oddities they recorded. And it was at that time that one of the most sensational theories emerged. The hypothesis of an ancient civilization. In the mid-20th century, a group of scientists studying geological data from Antarctica put forward a bold theory. It is possible that the continent was inhabited tens of thousands of years ago, long before it was covered by ice. This idea was further developed in the works of several independent researchers. According to the hypothesis, during warm periods when Earth's climate was milder, a civilization could have developed in Antarctica, comparable in advancement to the ancient Egyptians or Sumerians. The evidence includes strange satellite images, mysterious geometric shapes beneath the ice, as well as maps that depict Antarctica without its icy cover. Of course, mainstream science criticizes this theory, pointing to the lack of archaeological findings. But supporters of the theory believe that all physical traces are buried under kilometers-thick layers of ice, and that they can only be discovered with the help of modern technology. This hypothesis unexpectedly echoes the legends of many peoples who spoke of a mysterious land in the distant south. Antarctica in world myths. Myths about a distant southern continent can be found among the ancient Greeks, Chinese, Indians, and even Polynesians. Ancient Greek philosophers called this land Terra Australis and believed that it balanced the continents of the northern hemisphere. Some Polynesian legends contain stories of journeys to the south, where there was a land full of birds and animals, but shrouded in eternal cold. Indian texts mention an icy mountain, where the gods hid their secrets from humans. Although this may be just a coincidence, there is a sense that the memory of the southern land has endured through the ages. And if you combine these legends with geological data, an astonishing picture emerges. However, the real sensation began when scientists discovered something that, in principle, shouldn't have existed beneath the ice: huge lakes that have been isolated for millions of years. The mystery of the underground lakes. Beneath the kilometer-thick ice of Antarctica, more than 400 lakes are hidden. One of the most famous is Lake Vostok, which is almost the size of the American state of Connecticut. It lies more than 2 miles beneath the surface and has been isolated from the outside world for millions of years. The temperature in the lake is above 0 Fahrenheit thanks to geothermal heat, and scientists believe that a unique ecosystem unknown to modern biology may exist there. But there are even bolder theories suggesting that these waters may hold traces of an ancient civilization or even unknown forms of life. When the Russian team drilled a borehole and obtained water samples, laboratory analyses revealed the presence of strange microorganisms not found anywhere else on the planet. This discovery sparked a great deal of controversy. Are they evidence of an ancient evolutionary lineage or simply the result of sample contamination? But if such lakes exist, it means that beneath the Antarctic ice there may be much more than we can even imagine at this point. Unusual finds in the ice. Over the years, objects have been found deep within the Antarctic ice that are difficult to explain. Among them are fossilized remains of plants that grew in warm and humid conditions, bones of ancient animals not adapted to the cold, and even mysterious metal fragments whose origin remains disputed. At the end of the 20th century, scientists discovered fragments of wood that were millions of years old, confirming that Antarctica was once covered by forests. And in 2016, particles of meteoritic origin were found in ice samples, hinting at a catastrophe that could have radically changed the climate. Some discoveries raise even more questions. For example, samples containing alloy inclusions that look like the product of industrial processing. Of course, such finds are officially attributed to modern contamination, but conspiracy theorists consider them indirect evidence of the existence of ancient technologies. And the more discoveries are extracted from the ice, the more pressing the question becomes: what really happened on this continent in the distant past? Geological mysteries. The geological history of Antarctica is far more complex than is commonly believed. Studies of rocks raised from the floor of the Southern Ocean and from ice cores show that the continent was once part of the giant supercontinent Gondwana. Moreover, pollen and fossilized leaves indicate that a subtropical climate with dense forests and abundant wildlife once prevailed here. But what puzzles scientists is not only the fact that Antarctica was once tropical, but also the abrupt climate change. The data indicate that the cooling and the formation of the ice sheet happened abnormally fast, as if something catastrophic caused the climate to change within a short geological period. There are hypotheses about a sudden shift of the Earth's crust, the impact of a massive meteorite, or even a global catastrophe caused by human activity. Although the last theory sounds rather fantastical. If the climate could change so rapidly, perhaps this was exactly what brought an end to any possible civilization that might have existed on the continent. But there are even stranger coincidences connected to warm periods in the past. A climate that defies stereotypes? Ice core data has shown that Antarctica has gone through at least several warm periods over the past millions of years. During these times, the average annual temperatures were above 0 Fahrenheit, and vast areas of the continent were free of ice. Scientists suggest that during such periods, Antarctica could have been habitable for animals, and possibly even humans. But what's strange is that some of these heat anomalies coincide with the time frames when mysterious artifacts appeared in the ice layers. These coincidences have given rise to the theory that a civilization might have used these warm windows to develop and then disappeared or gone underground when the ice returned. This version seems wild to academic science, but it unexpectedly echoes stories about strange missions that took place in Antarctica in the 20th century. Strange flights and missions. In 1946, the United States launched a large-scale military operation called High Jump. Officially, the goal was to explore the continent and test equipment in cold conditions. However, the scale of resources involved in the operation and its sudden termination gave rise to a lot of rumors. According to unofficial sources, anomalies were discovered during the mission that the military preferred not to publicize. Some versions claim that strange underground structures were found, while others say there was an encounter with unidentified objects in the air. In the following years, other expeditions were sent to Antarctica, including Soviet and British ones, and all of them invariably returned with very scant information. What could have made the government keep silent about its findings? To understand this, it's worth looking at what became known decades later, when archives began to be declassified. Secret reports. When military archives began to be declassified in the 1990s, historians found documents mentioning strange discoveries deep within Antarctica. Some reports spoke of metallic formations found beneath the ice, as well as thermal anomalies that could not be explained by natural processes. One of the documents mentions a dome-shaped structure discovered from the air. Although there were no photographs in the archive, the description matches what ground-penetrating radars have detected in recent years. There is also information about encounters with unidentified flying objects in the area of the South Pole. Officially, these were attributed to equipment malfunctions and atmospheric phenomena. But in classified reports, the wording is much more cautious and clearly avoids direct denials. These materials fuel theories that not only ancient civilizations might have been hidden in Antarctica, but also something far more mysterious. Contact with another intelligence? Supporters of the boldest hypotheses claim that some of the discoveries in Antarctica cannot be explained without the intervention of external forces, whether it be extraterrestrial intelligence or an unknown ancient race that existed long before humans. In support of this theory, references are made to flying discs allegedly seen by pilots in the area of the South Pole, as well as to technologies that, according to descriptions, are unlike anything created by humans. Some conspiracy theorists even link Antarctica to the legendary city of Atlantis or to myths about a hollow Earth. The scientific community, of course, considers all of this to be speculation, but it cannot be denied that the number of strange coincidences associated with this continent grows every year. And if you take into account that many of these stories come from military personnel and researchers who were actually present there, the question arises, is it possible that someone is deliberately hiding the truth about Antarctica's past? Why is the truth being hidden? A question that many people ask is, if there really are sensational discoveries beneath the ice of Antarctica, why isn't this being discussed openly? Conspiracy theorists believe that the reason lies in politics and economics. If evidence of an ancient civilization or technologies ahead of their time is found, it could overturn human history and cast doubt on many scientific and religious dogmas. Other theories point to the possible presence of resources that governments want to keep secret until they are ready to extract them. There are also more fantastical assumptions that the discovered technologies might be dangerous or too complex for our understanding, and that is why they are being hidden to avoid panic. But to separate truth from fiction, we need to carefully examine each of the popular stories about Antarctica. Debunking the myths. Antarctica is shrouded in numerous rumors, from underground cities and ancient ships to secret alien bases. But if we strip away the artistic exaggerations, we are left with facts that are truly astonishing. For example, most stories about flying disks at the South Pole have natural explanations: unusual atmospheric phenomena, optical illusions caused by extreme cold, or instrument malfunctions. And the mysterious pyramids photographed from the air often turn out to be mountain peaks with a regular shape due to erosion and glacial pressure. Nevertheless, some anomalies remain unexplained. Subglacial lakes, mysterious geometric structures, as well as traces of a warm climate in the recent geological past, these are real mysteries that still lack clear scientific explanations. And it is precisely such facts that drive scientists to continue their research, which is becoming more and more advanced each year. New research. Modern technologies make it possible to study Antarctica in ways that were previously impossible. Ground-penetrating radars, ultra-high-resolution satellite imaging, autonomous subglacial drones, all of these are opening up new horizons. Recent expeditions have uncovered several more major anomalies beneath the ice surface. Some of them are perfectly symmetrical formations stretching hundreds of yards in length. Scientists are cautious in their conclusions for now, but they admit that these structures do not resemble any known natural formations. In addition, international projects are actively studying microbial life in subglacial lakes, hoping to find forms that could help us understand how life can exist in extreme conditions and, possibly, beyond Earth. But the more we learn, the clearer it becomes. The answers may turn out to be even more astonishing than all the myths and legends combined.